When you're out taking photos, you can use this checklist to make sure you're taking interesting and meaningful photos.
What we're calling scroll stoppers. First up, is the photo striking?
Does it stop you in your tracks? Okay, to make a striking portrait, you're actually gonna have to keep quite a few different things in mind, and we're gonna cover all of those things in the next 9 tips. What we want you to keep in mind right now is that you really wanna try to make your photos striking. You want people to stop in their tracks when they're scrolling Instagram. You wanna make them want to take a closer look at your image.
Here are some photos that we think are pretty striking, and we'll help you understand why in the next 9 tips.
Second, is a photo creative?
Is it something that's been done a million times before, or is it something new and interesting?
Our goal when we go out and shoot is usually to shoot stuff that we haven't seen a million times before. I think it can be really tempting for a lot of photographers to go out and shoot a lot of the same trends over and over again. But what we think makes a photo really striking is when you shoot something that hasn't been seen before.
When we're out on a shoot with models, we try to get inspired in the moment instead of just directly copying inspiration, for instance.
Yeah, we think this leads to creating images that are ultimately striking.
So with this shoot, for instance, we had just our model's limbs sticking out from this bridge support structure.
Yeah, by hiding her face, I feel like it provides some mystery and intrigue, and it makes you want to take a closer look at the photo.
And then we had her walk into this little pool of water, which kind of created this weird, kind of intriguing image, I think.
Yeah, she was a trooper.
Yeah. And then this other one from this lower perspective, and then she's looking into the lens. It kind of draws you in and makes you want to know more.
Yeah. Yeah, and these aren't photos that we saw somewhere else and then tried to recreate them. These were just photos that we took while in the moment.
So here are some more photos that we think accomplish this pretty well.
Third, how is color being used?
Is the use of color intentional, and does it add to or detract from the photo?
People might overlook color theory, but it's actually vitally important to expressing the correct mood or visual interest in your photo.
Here's a shoot we did at In-N-Out with our model Kyra.
So she's got this red pleather jacket, this leopard print unitard, and bandana, and these classic white boots. And not only are the items that she's wearing adding to this Americana feel, but the colors are also similar to the In-N-Out colors. So she's really tying into her environment. We put her in a floral top or something orange or blue. She's not gonna mesh well. The vibe's gonna be totally different. So this is just a great example of how color really is important when you're crafting your entire shoot.
Another example is for this shoot, we knew that we were gonna shoot at a construction site. So we went out after scouting the location to find the wardrobe. And so we found these orange pants that we knew would tie in really well. And so with this example, she's really tying into the environment. And even though it's a fashion editorial shoot at an unseemly location, it somehow works.
So we actually did an entire video on color theory, and if you're interested in learning more about that, definitely recommend checking it out. But basically, we just think it's very important that you're being very mindful when you're choosing colors, because they really dictate how your viewer is going to perceive the photo. And being especially mindful when you're mixing colors together, because certain colors work really well together and certain colors don't. And sometimes you actually want them to juxtapose against each other. There's just a lot to consider. And so if it's not on your checklist of considerations, definitely
put it on there.
Yeah, work on that.
Fourth, does it show a mastery of lighting?
Yeah, understanding the fundamentals of photography is so crucial when you're making your photos. Light can play a huge role in your photo. Light can act as a subject in your photo, like in this photo where Christina is holding it as an orb. If you light your subject in a certain way, it can guide the eye to your subject. There are cool things you can do with lighting. For instance, this photo that we have of Christina, where the lighting coming into the room was coming in this beautiful prism pattern. And we use it as a rainbow on her face. There's just so many ways that lighting can really enhance your photo or become the entire subject of your photo.
Yeah, and with landscape photography, it adds depth and dimension and interest, and a lot of times it can play with the colors in your scene with the golden light interacting with other colors, and it can make for a really captivating image.
Yeah, and not just lighting, but also the absence of light. So shadow play can be really interesting in photos. So yeah, just really understanding how to master light. And we have so many videos on that if you're interested, but that's so important.
Fifth, is the photo composed in a way that it directs the viewer's eye to your focal point?
Yeah, is there balance and interest? Your overall goal when composing your shot should be directing your viewer's eye to your subject.
So with this shot, for instance, I actually used another model to highlight the other one by bringing one closer to the camera and making her out of focus, and also using her face to frame the other model.
Yeah, it's a little trick called subframing, and we have a whole video on that.
And here's another example of subframing. We use the ladder on this fire escape to help frame our subject as well.
And this is another good example of how color plays a role here, because the fire escape is all neutral colors, and Matt is wearing a purple suit and holding this big purple piece of fabric. And so your eye is going to go directly to him because he's framed by the ladder and because he's wearing this bold color.
It's called the combo number 5.
I love that. There's the traditional rules of composition, like you have a rule of thirds, a great starting point, like this photo of Destiny right in the third. Actually, both models are in the thirds, but Destiny is the one who's in focus, and your eye goes right to her. You can also center compose, a la Wes Anderson. We always love doing that. Like this shot right here of our model in the salt flats, and she's up against this red backdrop in this big, expansive, like white, salty wonderland. So because of the bright colors and because of the way that it's centrally located in the photo, your eye goes straight to her. So those are just like a few of the ways that you can be mindful of the way that you're framing your subjects.
Sixth, how does story play a role in the photo?
Yeah, is it meaningful in any way? Yeah, instead of just taking random photos, we think that photos are more meaningful when they communicate something with your viewer. That could be an emotion, a feeling, an idea, a theme. We've actually done some videos about creating story around photos.
Here's one we did where we based the whole shoot around a song. And so for the first half, the model is looking pretty kind of weak and timid and sad. And then we also had her transform into a more confident kind of man-eating character.
In the song, the lyrics like describe a lot about this character down to what she's wearing. And so it was very easy to create a story based around the mood and the feeling and the idea behind the song. And the shoot turned out great. And because it has that story, it's not just, random photos put together. You can see like the meaning carried throughout the photos. Yeah, and we did this again with our photo shoot series.
Each photo kind of tells a story. Our goal was to have these frames that you want to watch the whole movie of, even though it's just a single photo shoot with, a handful of photos.
Yeah, okay, a photographer who does this wonderfully is Nirav Patel, if you want to sort of be more inspired. But yeah, the idea was to create this sort of story with these photos that felt like they were just stills from a movie, and a movie that we definitely wanted to see. There's so much raw emotion.
Ended up being one of our favorite shoots we've ever done, I think.
For sure.
Yeah. It also doesn't have to be so deep and meaningful. So for example, we did our merch lookbook when we created our new merch line, and we hired a bunch of senior citizens to be our models.
Yeah, the story behind it was just that these senior citizens dressed really cool.
Yeah, and you buy our merch.
Yeah, that was the real story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seventh, does the location add intrigue or story to the photo?
We did a shoot with Will last year where we put him in a spacesuit and then we had him sort of skating around this urban environment. If we would have done that shoot more in nature, that would have changed the entire vibe of the entire shoot. Still would have been cool.
Yeah.
Still would have been a dreamy shoot to do, but the fact that he's in an urban environment really catered to a specific mood. Another more obvious way that you can incorporate your location into your photo is by matching it to your subject. And so we did this here with Kyra. The shirt that she's wearing is this beige color and it's got these lines in it. And we found a backdrop that was the same beige color with this texture of lines with it. And so she just kind of morphs into this backdrop.
It feels like she fits in there.
Yeah, and so the location really becomes an integral part of the entire photo. Without it, it would just be a model posing, but it becomes this lively, really interesting photo. 8, does your subject pop?
Now there are several ways to do this. Here's one example. We used an incredibly tight focal length, the 400mm lens, which the longer the focal length, the more your subject will pop out from the background, the more background blur you'll get. And so here's an extreme example where normally the background would be very busy, and you can see it's very soft and creamy and smooth. And so the subject pops out very easily here.
Yeah, so focal length is an obvious way where you can make your subject pop just by making your subject the actual focus of the entire scene. But you can also do it in other ways. Like we've mentioned before, you can use color to make your subject pop. Like we did here with Matt in his purple suit. Your eye is gonna go straight to him and he's gonna really stand out from the backdrop because he's wearing this really bold color.
So something else that you can do is utilize negative space. And so for this shoot, we really made sure to minimize all the distractions and get a really clear backdrop so that the subjects of the photo are pretty much the only thing in the image to really look at that really draws your eye in.
Yeah, so just make sure your subject pops.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. Ninth, are there repeating patterns and shapes?
Another way you can really add interest to your photo is by using these repeating patterns or shapes that you see throughout the entire photo. That's something that's like really subtle but super captivating. The human eye is like super drawn to repeating patterns. So we've utilized this a lot in many of our photos. You can do it by having the model's limbs match the shapes around them. So we have this picture of Crystalline sort of mirroring the V of the tree and then the V of the footbridge structure. And you can tell that's like something that's like you're automatically drawn to it, and that's why.
So here, even though the backdrop doesn't really have any noticeable shapes, it's just foliage, we had our models utilize symmetry by sitting in a similar position.
Yeah, it's like a super intriguing photo for no reason other than they're just mirroring each other.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then this last photo, we have Kyra leaning in front of this In-N-Out logo, which has this angle that's like very familiar, and so she's making the same angle with her body and then again with her leg. She's full of the same kind of angles, and so to see that repeating throughout the image is just
It's kind of cool.
It feels good to
Yeah.
look at.
Did you do that on purpose when the thing, or is that just like a happy accident?
She did that, and then I was like, oh my gosh, that's so perfect. So let's make sure we get the In-N-Out logo in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, she went for that angle. Finally, do all of these tips work together to create a specific mood for your photo?
So here's one image we think that kind of combines all of these elements we mentioned to create one striking final image.
Okay, first, is the photo striking? This is gonna be like subjective, and it's like our own work, so it's kind of weird for us to be like, yeah, it's striking, but I think it's striking.
Yeah, I just think the way the composition is, the way the model looks, and then the other model in the background, like there's some sort of conflict going on, and the way the photo is composed also lends itself to that.
Yeah, so if I'm scrolling past this on Instagram, am I stopping and taking a look?
Me personally, I'd be like, what movie is this from? Which is exactly what we wanted. I mean, that's very subjective, like you said, but
Do you guys think it's striking?
will you tell us it's striking? 'Cause we don't know.
Second, is the photo creative? Like, is this something that you've seen a million times before? If I were to open Instagram right now, would I see the same photo?
Or like on
there?
Pinterest. To me, I would say no.
Yeah, I've never seen this photo before. And
Tell us if you have.
Third, how is color being used?
This is actually, I love how everything worked out. So we had a wardrobe stylist on the shoot, luckily, and the location was amazing. So we had this rusty color for our female model, and then a lot of the house had this like 60s and 70s like color palette.
yeah.
And so she ties in really well with the wallpaper behind her, and then also the bedspread and the artwork in the bedroom on the left-hand side of the frame.
Fourth, mastery of lighting.
Yeah, I mean, the lighting is simple. It's just the window light. You know, the way it kind of comes in, it creates a moody look, which is what we wanted. But it also, our model in the foreground is well lit. And also the one in the background, you can kind of see that he's in a mood too. And you can see that the light's kind of spilling out over there.
Yeah, so what I like about the lighting, particularly in this one, is that not only is she well lit, but she's also in the shadows, which super adds to the mood. Like, her mood is like a little bit serious, a little maybe sad, or maybe pensive, and the shadows are really adding to that. But she's not covered in shadows, she's still lit well, so you have that juxtaposition, and I just think the lighting is everything in this photo.
Fifth, let's talk about composition. So we have the photo's kind of split in half, right?
I think this composition, I can say it because I think you took this photo. I think this is perfect composition. So when you have your subject in a third, and then you have like this background character in the other third, the visual tension in this photo, I think it's composed so well, is that the door frame is going straight down the middle. So it's literally dividing the photo in half, and you have this, it almost looks like a diptych.
Yeah. And when the couple was also supposed to have like this conflict, so
I mean, you feel it. You're literally like, the visual is there. It's like, so it's obviously there.
Okay.
I love it.
Sixth, how does story play a role? Well, I mean, I want to know more about this.
This is so chock full of story. This is what we mean by story. I think sometimes people don't know what we mean, but this is it. Like, there is a story behind this photo that I want to know more about. And the more I look at the photo, the more I look at the details, I'm getting more an idea of what the story is.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be all spelled out for you, but it should be enough to intrigue you.
Okay, so for location, we were very specific about the place that we wanted to shoot them in, and we chose this house. Not only is the house like the color palette working with, you know, the colors that they're wearing, and the mood and the 70s sort of vibe that we had in this shoot, but it's also like an intimate setting inside of the house where the couple lives for the sake of the shoot is the vibe that we wanted, and the location just adds everything to that.
8, does your subject pop?
Yeah, so naturally your eye is going to go to the brightest spot of a photo, which is kind of his t-shirt is probably the brightest spot, but then the next brightest thing is this subject who's in focus and like perfectly lit and also wearing this like bolder orangey color. So my eye is going to her first, really. Yeah. So yeah, I do think she pops. She's in a third.
Third helps, yeah.
Yeah, the lighting, the color, the focus, all of that serves to make her stand out as a subject. In this like otherwise kind of busy photo,
yeah.
Like, it's clear that she's a subject.
And then 9, it's about patterns and shapes.
Yeah, so there's even repeating patterns in this photo. You have the lines on her shirt that match the lines of the door frame, and that's so subtle. And she has her arm up in a line. So yeah, so subtle, but it's something that like subconsciously your eye is attracted to.
And on the left-hand side, you have a little bit more angles.
Do you know what I also like about the left side is I see a lot of circular, like the light is making a lot of circular patterns, and so you kind of have like the juxtaposition of like the lines on this side and then like the softer circles on the other side.
El bokeh.
That wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
But it works.
So 10 is combining all those elements together in one photo, and there you have it. All right, well, we hope these tips help you to take more striking, scroll-stopping work, if you will. Do us a favor, hit the thumbs up button on this video. Consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that notification bell because YouTube doesn't like to show our videos to people sometimes, so that will help.
Yeah, we're posting videos pretty much every week, so don't think that we just went away because
we're still here.
YouTube isn't showing them to you. Also, feel free to roast us in the comments for saying scroll-stopping so much.
Yeah, especially since we don't post on Instagram much anymore. All right. That's all in this one. We'll see you in the next one.
And don't forget to subscribe to our other channels.
Bye.